Hello. Been a while. For starters, there's a couple of things going on that I did want to get to. Not the least of which is the thing with, um, and it's en masse, and there's a lot of different parts to it, but uh, bouts of sex scandals going on in terms of not only politicians finally being called out on, in essence, taxpayer-funded hush-up money, slush fund. Um, John Conyers is one of the latest ones, but there's been a whole lot of them, slew of them. And then in terms of independent media, or so-called, because to me, really, TYT the Young Turks have been bought out a long time ago. At one point, they had definitely some independent elements. At this point, I can't say they do. Was with Jordan Chariton, where he finally, it seems, got called out on, on his criminality. And abuse of power is abuse of power, period. No matter where it is, no matter where it occurs. You can't just say, oh, well, these things, oh, he said, oh, No. Abuse of power is abuse of power. And this was clear cut abuse of power. This was clear cut, abuse of power without question. Best case scenario, and I do believe the women involved, it was, and this is like the best spin you could think of, is that Chariton just used the money from TYT for his own startup, in independent media / music outlet, and that was at best case scenario. I don't even think that that's true. I really believe the women that have mentioned their stories, and so to me it's okay, complete mud, complete muck. And my thing is that as soon as I found other more direct sources that they were doing direct conferences in terms of the victims in Flint, Michigan, I switched from Chariton to their direct YouTube channel, where they themselves, the people that were enduring cancer, and I think they still actually are, putting out videos for what's going on. So they themselves actually do have a voice, and in terms of, again, everyone's harping on that story that, Chariton broke. Again, these people can talk for themselves, and they have been afterwards, and they were during it. So, for people say, oh, well, this. It was one thing, and it was temporary. Compared to all the damage that, he's done since then, guess what? If it wasn't him in terms of the face, these other people may have actually gotten surfaced faster, and us as other independent journalists might have actually picked up and spread this information even quicker without Chariton. So I don't even give him that. I'm sorry. No, I don't give that. No. Beyond that, it's an absolute mess. Someone that doesn't much like labels, Jimmy Dore still has a fair amount of respect for me, but he's been like semi-independent for a long time. I don't like the concept of him putting out progressive, because I revile that label to no end, but I still respect at least a solid amount of what he has to say. But again, it's a truly serious issue. Chariton, he's based out of Long Island, not that far from me. I mean, I'm out in Far Rockaway. I can walk, and I have about 20 minutes from my doorstep to Long Beach, Long Island. So it's not that far from me, to put it mildly. I have relatives out in Long Island. Not that I really talk to them much, but to put it mildly, but I do have them out around here. The New York metro area has been a place that my family's called home for more than a century now. And in 2020, I'll be at least old enough to run for president of the United States. I wasn't in this last cycle, and no, I'm not really thinking of it. But again, in terms of my age group, I'm an older millennial. So, again, my family came here between about 1906 to 1902 or so to about 1935 in terms of the last relative getting here. That was my last grandparent, who got here when she was under the age of 2. So, again, my history in this area runs a ways. When you talk about, this construct of, quote, draining the swamp, it means a few things to me. It means that money has to stop corrupting the system, and it means that people have to stop getting away with criminality as a matter of routine behavior in quote unquote elected, really at this point selected office, which means that our elected officials, okay, we're so-called, because again, there's no election integrity, so they're really not elected in most of the USA. These officials, they should not be acting like kings and queens. They should not be acting like they are above the law. And yet, the truth is that they write embedded in the legislation loopholes where they are indeed exempt from most of the laws that they actually pass. And I do follow this. I do watch in terms of, and I do read the bills carefully, just as I've done a good number of medium pieces and a good number of work in terms of absolutely shredding pieces of legislation on the issue that I care about. One of my top issues being medical care. I've written a bunch of pieces, at least 2 main pieces, shredding medical care bills, because I know how medical systems in this country work, or shall I say, don't work. My folks are pharmacists. So, and I have other relatives in the medical field. So again, and between that and having disabilities from birth, I know the system, and I've had some college training as well. So therefore, I know the system. So we need to get rid of abuses. We need to get rid of both sexual abuse, okay, and again, the congressional slush fund for hush-up money for victims, that's got to end. And yes, I'm in favor of a constitutional amendment saying that money is not speech, and therefore allowing for then further legislation directly to be passed to ban money from politics, fully publicly funded elections, not even allowing candidates to use their quote-unquote personal fortunes to help them run. I've had it. This does not work. Again, this is a huge thing. H.A. Goodman has been harping on TYT and Chariton, and I get that completely. My respect to him. Unfortunately, again, going through some direct things. My husband had surgery this past Tuesday. It was kind of expected, but not really, which is to say we had a surgical consult for this medical problem scheduled for the 29th, and the 21st, it just we landed in the ER, and so I didn't get any sleep that night. And but again, he had surgery and he's recovering well at this point. So, but again, this country is a mess. We need to fix these systematic problems of people behaving as if they are above the law. We need to get rid of abuses of power at all levels. And yes, that includes corporate or semi-corporate media. I've called Cenk Uygur, Rachel Maddow's little brother, because in essence, again, they're both corporate media outlets at this point. So they should both be treated in the same regards, and therefore, of course, you're going to get, unfortunately, some abuse finally showing. Maybe it's a step in the right direction, the fact that this was reported on and gotten out fairly quickly, because in the, in MSM, and CNN and those other outlets that are more blatantly corporate media, it generally takes decades for these things to come out. With Chariton, it didn't take that long. But again, that doesn't make it right. If anything, maybe it's a step in the right direction, the fact that it came out this relatively soon. Which isn't to say that the victims, involved in this don't deserve to get protection and don't deserve respect for coming out. Nor that they in any way, shape, or form deserved this. But rather in the overall scheme of things that it didn't take as incredibly long to have this happen and to get them some monicum of justice, as unfortunately this country has a history of doing to women. So a little bit of a step forward. Not enough, but a little bit. And in the meantime, we need to keep on acknowledging what has happened, what is happening, and what the goal is, which is to have this stop, which is to have this not even take, the roughly, it seems like about a year and a half or so for this to come out, but for it to have happened and for it to have gotten reported on and for him to have been fired or at least seriously reprimanded within a month of it occurring. Suspension within a week. Okay, not waiting all these months. We need to work on our society in many serious ways to really say that equality of rights, human rights, and human dignity is worth something. And this is definitely one of those spheres. And in another video, I'll be talking about another one of them. Shalom.